To Kill a Mockingbird, Chapter 5. So I thought we should stop playing Boo Radley, because Atticus had warned us not to. Jim said we should just change the names of the characters, and then nobody would know. Dill agreed. Dill, by the way, was being annoying. He had asked me earlier in the summer to marry him, then he promptly forgot about it. He had said I was the only girl he would ever love, but then he ignored me. I beat him up twice, but it did no good. He kept becoming better friends with Jim. Since Dill and Jim were becoming so close, I was beginning to feel left out. So I spent some time becoming friendly with Miss Maudie Atkinson. Miss Maudie was a nice lady who lived across the street. She had always let us play in her yard, but we had never really been close to her. Now Maudie hated being indoors. She thought that time spent indoors was time wasted. She was a widow who worked in her garden wearing an old straw hat and men's overalls. She was pretty cool. She was honest, treated us with respect, and didn't like gossip. One day I noticed that Miss Maudie had 2 minute gold prongs clipped to her eye teeth. When I admired them and hoped I would have some eventually, she said, "Look here." With a click of her tongue, she thrust out her dentures. Cool. I think that was her way of letting me know that she really considered me a friend. Miss Maudie made the best cakes in the neighborhood. She would yell, "Jim Finch, Scout Finch, Charles Baker Harris, come here." That meant that she had baked some small cakes for us, and we went running. One evening I asked, "Miss Maudie, do you think Boo Radley's still alive?" "His name's Arthur, and he's alive," she said. "How do you know?" What a morbid question. I know he's alive, Jean Louise, because I haven't seen anybody carry out a body. Jim said that maybe he died and stuffed him up in the chimney, I added. Miss Maudie said, "Tisk, tisk, Jim gets more like Jack Finch every day. They're both such wise guys." Jack Finch was my uncle, Atticus's brother, and Miss Maudie had known him since they were children. Miss Maudie had grown up near Finch's Landing and used to play with Jack. Uncle Jack visited our house every Christmas, and every Christmas he yelled across the street for Miss Maudie to come marry him. He was such a jokester. Miss Maudie would call back, "Call a little louder, Jack Finch, and they'll hear you at the post office." Miss Maudie continued her answer about Boo Radley. "Arthur Radley just stays in the house, that's all. Wouldn't you stay in the house if you didn't want to come out?" "Yes'm, but I'd want to come out. Why doesn't he?" Miss Maudie explained that Mr. Radley was a foot-washing Baptist, which means that he believes anything that's a pleasure is a sin. She said that some of those Baptists even passed by her house once and told her that she and her flowers were going to hell. They thought that Miss Maudie spent too much time outdoors and not enough time inside the house reading the Bible. Miss Maudie said that these people were taking the Bible too literally. She said, "Sometimes the Bible in the hand of one man is worse than a whiskey bottle in the hand of, someone like your father." She also said that there's just some kind of men who are so busy worrying about the next world that they've never learned to enjoy this one, like the Radleys. Miss Maudie said that all the stories about Boo were gossip, from people like Stephanie Crawford, who was always in everybody's business. She said that she remembered Arthur as a really nice boy. The next day, I caught Jim and Dill planning something. They finally told me what it was. They were going to go try and get a note to Boo Radley. They were going to put the note on the end of a fishing pole and stick it through the shutters. If anyone came along the street, Dill would ring the bell to warn Jim. Dill explained what the note said. "We're asking him real politely to come out sometimes and tell us what he does in there. We said we wouldn't hurt him, and we'd buy him an ice cream." I told Dill that he and Jim were crazy and that Boo would kill us. I was watching Jim trying to get the note in the window when all of a sudden we heard Dill ringing his bell. I thought I would turn around to see Boo Radley with bloody fangs. Instead, I saw Dill ringing his bell with all his might in Atticus' face. Uh-oh. When Atticus found out what we were trying to do, he told Jim to stop tormenting Arthur Radley. He continued on, saying that what Arthur did was his own business, not ours. If he wanted to come out, he would, and if he didn't, he had the right to stay inside without inquisitive children harassing him. He ended up by saying that he did not want to see us playing the asinine game he had seen us playing, or making fun of anyone on this street or in this town. Jim said, "We weren't making fun of him. We were just—" "So that was what you were doing, wasn't it? You were acting out the Radleys' life story as I suspected," said Atticus accusingly. Jim got flustered and realized that Atticus had tricked him into admitting that the game they had been playing was really us acting out the gossip we had heard about the Radley family. When Atticus said, "You want to be a lawyer, don't you?" Jim realized that Atticus had used the oldest lawyer's trick on him. Atticus had pretended he knew we were playing Boo Radley when really he only suspected it, and that Jim confessed without realizing. Chapter 6. On Dill's last night with us that summer, before we went back to Mississippi to start school, Dill noticed Mr. Avery on his front porch. Dill said, "Golly, look yonder." At first we saw nothing, but then we saw an arc of water falling from the leaves and splashing into the yellow circle of the street light 10 feet away. Dill said, "Mrs. Avery must drink a gallon a day." So I realized that Mr. Avery was peeing off his porch. And then Dill and Jim argued over which one of them could pee farther, and of course I felt left out again, being a girl and all. Later that night, Dill and Jim said they were going to peep in on the Radleys' window to see if they could get a look at Boo. They said that if I didn't want to go with them, I could go straight home and keep my mouth shut about it. I said, "Jim, don't." Jim said, "Scout, I'm telling you for the last time, shut your trap or go home. I declare to the Lord you're getting more like a girl every day." So I shut up and joined them. We snuck under a barbed wire fence and through a creaky gate into the Radleys' yard. We had to be very quiet, and I was so nervous. We gave Dill a boost up to look in the window, but he didn't see anything. So we went around back, and Jim crept across the porch and peeked in a window. That was when I noticed the shadow. It was the shadow of a man with a hat on, and it was moving towards Jim. The moonlight was bright enough to make shadows that night. Dill noticed it too, and then Jim. We were petrified. The shadow stopped about a foot beyond Jim. Its arm came out from its side, dropped, and was still. And then it turned and moved back across Jim, walked along the porch, and off the side of the house, returning as it had come. We all made a run for it. We ran to the gate, and as we ran through the collards, I tripped. Then I heard the roar of a shotgun. We all scurried toward the barbed wire fence, but Jim caught on it as he tried to go under. His pants were caught, and he couldn't get them free, so he kicked his pants off and started running in his underwear. After resting for a minute, we realized that because of the shotgun noise, the whole neighborhood was standing around in the Radleys' front yard to see what was going on. We realized that we had better show up, or else people might start to realize that it was us sneaking around in the yard. When we got there, we saw Mr. Nathan Radley, Boo's older brother, standing with a shotgun by his side. Atticus was there, and Miss Maudie, Miss Stephanie Crawford, Miss Rachel, Dill's aunt, and Mr. Avery. "What happened?" asked Jim, as if he didn't know. Miss Maudie replied, "Mrs. Radley says he shot at a Negro in his colored patch." "Did he hit him?" "No," said Miss Stephanie. "Shot in the air. Scared him pale, though. Says if anybody sees a white person around, that's the one. Says he's got another bullet waiting for the next sound he hears in that patch. And next time, he won't aim high, be it a dog, a person, or Jim's Finch." Miss Stephanie had just noticed Jim standing there without any pants on. "Yes, ma'am?" asked Jim. Atticus spoke. "Where are your pants, son?" Dill spoke up quickly. He thought of a good excuse so nobody would suspect that it was really us in the Radleys' yard. He told everyone he had won Jim's pants from him in a game of strip poker. Jim and I relaxed, thinking this was a good excuse. But Miss Rachel, Dill's aunt, was very upset. She didn't think we should be playing poker. Gambling was a bad thing. But we said we were only betting with matches, not with real money. So they calmed down a little. Sure, matches were dangerous, but gambling was really dangerous. Kids shouldn't be gambling. It's kind of ironic that they were more concerned about us playing with cards than us playing with matches. In the middle of the night, Jim had to sneak out to go back and get his pants, which were still stuck in the Radleys' fence. If he didn't get the pants back, Atticus would have known that Dill's strip poker excuse wasn't true. He didn't want Atticus to find out what we had done because he knew Atticus would be very disappointed in him. Jim said he shouldn't have gone to the Radleys' place like that. It was wrong. I was scared to let Jim go back there alone in the middle of the night, but he went anyway. After a while, he came back and crept into bed. Thank goodness.